G'day guys and gal! The list for beings or entities in Warhammer 40k that are more powerful than the God Emperor is a very short list, with everyone who could have taken the big golden mound down a notch either being dead or kicked so hard in the balls that they're too busy choking on their own testicles. The Void Dragon is choking pretty hard right now, however that doesn't mean he isn't an absolute force of nature, a beast who continues to dramatically impact the setting up until this very day, a god who is low-key one of the most important deities in the Imperium of Man's pantheon. I'll explain more about that in this video. Out of all the Catan, the gods of the physical universe, the Void Dragon is the most powerful, the most interesting, and the most deserving of the next 12 minutes or so of your life. Before we get started, we all want to look as jacked as possible without having to blast gear or live in the gym. That isn't narcissism, that's just facts. But what we overlook is that visible abs and muscle mostly comes from what you eat rather than how many weights you can throw around. But getting your diet down packed, cooking, or ordering food is either challenging, time-consuming, or expensive. Hence, I give you the ultimate solution. Factor, a brand that delivers high-protein, well-macroed microwave meals to your doorstep. Factor knows that microwave meals can be a bit mid, so it goes that extra mile by never freezing the food so it always comes out fresh. All you do is bang it into the microwave and now you have a top-tier muscle-building meal for a fraction of what you'd spend going out or ordering food while also taking no time at all. If you're a busy guy that works out or you just want to improve your diet, then you'd have to be an absolute fool not to use Factor. Also, if you're worried about getting sick of the meals, then don't. Each week, Factor sends different meals that you can customize yourself. By far, this is the best pre-made meal delivery service, and by using my linking code POG Majorkill Feb50, it'll auto-apply with the link, then you'll get 50% off your first box, bringing the meals down to like $5 a serving. Cheers to Factor for sponsoring this video. Today we will go over the Void Dragon, its origins, its special powers, what happened to it during the War in Heaven, and what it is currently up to in the setting. Let's get into it. When the universe went bang, a few fundamental beings were created. Beings of such immense power that they were like gods. The old ones were one example, the masters of the warp and everything psychic. The Catan were another, the masters of reality. Two polar opposite forces, yin and yang, but instead of working in harmony, all they want to do is genocide each other's tits off. However, before the Catan knew what genocide was, they were just star parasites, slow-moving gassy giants that would migrate from one star to the next, draining it of its fuel and plasma before it eventually became nothing more than a molten rock. This does sound quite apocalyptic, and I'm sure a few alien races weren't too stoked about their suns getting winked out. But there wasn't many Catan, and they didn't move very quickly or devour suns that speedily. On the flip side, the old ones had already spawned dozens of new races and brought millions of worlds under their guidance. However, another race naturally evolved without the influence of the Catan or the old ones, the Necrontyr. The Necrontyr were not a very happy people. They evolved on a planet that didn't have an ozone layer. It was called Australia, and the skin cancer rates were super high. For some reason, despite the Necrontyr literally evolving on this world, they never actually evolved to deal with the amount of sun radiation that was cum blasting their world on the daily. Hence they lived short, painful, cancer-ridden lives. Even when they left their birth world and found nicer worlds, their skin cancer followed them like a curse. When they eventually encountered the old ones, they were like, dope, you can fix our skin cancer issues. And the old ones were like, Lamau, no. So the Necrontyr declared war on them. However, when a bunch of cancer patients declare war on literal gods, it just doesn't go super well. Hence the Necrontyr Empire was smashed and exiled to the corner of the galaxy. While in this exile, they saw one of the Catan eating a star and were like, I wonder what would happen if we built gigantic mechas out of living metal and shoved one of the Catan into it. Well, only one way to find out. Unfortunately, the Catan they chose as their first mecha was the Deceiver. Whoops, who thought that souls looked a lot tastier than stars, so tricked the Necrontyr into giving the other Catan mecha bodies before then sacrificing their flesh and souls to become the Necrons. See, the living metal mechas gave the Catan sentience, and since Catan is selfish, power-hungry devourers, this wasn't a good thing. The Catan then greedily ate the Necrontyr flesh and souls before enslaving the Necrons to their will. One of these Catan was the Void Dragon, Magladroth. a mighty being who was a master of technology and invention. He and he alone could create the most obscene galaxy-altering technology, invulnerable warriors, pylons that could shut down the warp in a certain area. Pretty much everything super awesome that the Necrons have would have been created by the Void Dragon. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it was the Void Dragon who built the technology required for the Necron biotransference, the transformation of weak fleshy Necron tier into the mighty metal Necrons. With his physical power combined with his technological might, the Void Dragon was considered to be the mightiest of the Catan. This next bit is mostly just Eldar myth, but it's the only reliable lore we have on the matter, so we're just gonna roll with it. With their Necron legions, the Catan waged war against the Old Ones, seeking to consume the delicious souls that the Old Ones' creations had. Thus began the legendary War in Heaven. Now, I've already covered the War in Heaven in another video. However, as it raged back and forward, destroying countless worlds and ending a shitload of lives, the Void Dragon decided to attempt to achieve a total victory. He began creating the Necron pylons and placing them on various worlds that would nullify the warp around it. The Necron pylons on Cadia that was stopping the Eye of Terror's expansion are the most famous example of these. The idea was to make so many pylons that eventually the Milky Way was covered in a null zone that would separate real space from the warp, thus stripping the Old Ones and their armies of power. However, the forces of the Old Ones weren't just bending over backwards, ready to receive the Void Dragon's cybercock. The Eldar god Vol created a number of super weapons called the Blackstone Fortresses. They are kinda like Death Stars. The more Blackstone Fortresses that fire at a single target, the more devastating the attack, but in a multiplied sort of way. For example, if one Blackstone Fortress can destroy a planet, 2 would be able to destroy a solar system, and so on. It's not entirely clear how many were made, but there was a minimum of 6, but probably around 9. Before the Necron Pylon project could be completed, the Eldar confronted the Void Dragon with all the Blackstone Fortresses, and with one hectic galactic Kamehameha, they all fired simultaneously, hitting the Void Dragon with enough power to wipe out a small galaxy. This kicked the Void Dragon super hard in the balls, but it did not kill him. Motherfucker was tough as hell. However, this was what probably knocked the Void Dragon out of the game and more or less ended the Pylon project. It appears as if the Blackstone Fortress's attack cut the Void Dragon in half, with one half going to Terra/Earth and the other half going back to the Necron Empire. With the forces of the Old Ones decimated and the Catan weakened from infighting, the Necrons turned on their Catan overlords and smashed the remaining Catan into shards. See, they didn't want to completely kill them, as to destroy a god of reality is to destroy an aspect of reality itself. Also, Catan shards make great batteries. The half of the Void Dragon that returned to the Necron Empire was attacked by the Necrons, smashed into shards, and divided amongst the Necron dynasties. However, the Void Dragon that went to Earth entered a long hibernation, hoping to recover from its wounds. Hence it became the largest Void Dragon shard and easily the most powerful Catan shard in existence. Now, not much of what I said is explicitly stated in the lore, just a bunch of hints and evidence, but since it's literally my job to pick up thousands of strands of contradicting 40k lore that spans decades from dozens of different writers, I'm putting it all into a coherent story for your absorption. However, I will provide a few notes of evidence though, as I know a few of you fucking Timmies are about to be like, but the Majorkill. Firstly, numerous Necron dynasties have Void Dragon shards, meaning they did attack and shatter a Void Dragon. Secondly, the dragon under Mars is definitely also the Void Dragon, and an extremely large and powerful version at that. The only way that there would be 2 large Void Dragons is if the Blackstone Fortress attack split the original Void Dragon, so there you go, checkmate. After the Void Dragon had recovered, it emerged from its hiding and began terrorizing a medieval humanity, literally eating their maidens and shit like a proper dragon. The Emperor was like, just as planned, and I shit you not, the mad lad threw on a suit of armor, jumped on a horse, and charged the Void Dragon like a fucking knight. This meme here by M. Whatnot, who is my favorite 40k meme artist personally, is funny, but also quite literally captures the moment. The Emperor charges, starts punching on with the Void Dragon, and then beats his ass down and knocks it out. How did he manage this? Well, he is the fucking Emperor of Mankind, and it's common knowledge that knights can slay dragons. Psychic Might has also always been a powerful counter to Necrons and Catan, which is why the Necrons and Catan were so keen to try nullify the warp. With the dragon knocked out, the Emperor dragged its ass to Mars and locked it deep underground in the Noctis Labyrinthus. Even unconscious, the Void Dragon's influence was so great that the entire Noctis Labyrinthus became uninhabitable. Not toxic, but like cursed. machines would malfunction and machine spirits would shit the bed. The Emperor also placed a guardian to watch over the Void Dragon, a talented mortal who he bestowed a sliver of power to, which would allow them to be within the presence of the Void Dragon without going insane, well, at least not completely insane, whilst also granting them an extremely long lifespan in the thousands of years. He needed to ensure that A, nobody finds the Void Dragon, and B, the Void Dragon doesn't wake up, hence the role of the Guardian. The Emperor also implies that he is aware of the Necron's existence, and the Guardian must make sure he also keeps the Void Dragon's children, the Necrons, away from it. The Guardian also receives visions from the Void Dragon directly, a much more potent version of the dreams the rest of Mars gets. Hence they record these in a book and occasionally actually leak them to the Imperium when an especially good invention is received via a vision. For example, one of the Guardians released the knowledge on how to graft augmetic limbs with near perfect unity with the human body, making his name a legend even 10,000 years later. As a side effect of the Void Dragon being locked under Mars, its technological prowess begun to saturate the planet, its dreams leaking into the dreams of future Martian settlers. This resulted in the first colonists of Mars having an explosion in intelligence and technological might. The Mechanicum was quickly formed and rapidly accelerated mankind's technological evolution. Even when the Age of Strife occurred and mankind ate a massive dick, Mars was so advanced that it was able to weather the Age of Strife and maintain a lot of its technological power. This was the Emperor's plan all along. When mankind's first galactic empire was shattered, he knew Mars would remain strong, and he knew he needed the help of Mars to create the thousands of spaceships, trillions of weapons and armor, and other vehicles and tanks for his Great Crusade. He also knew that the dream of the Void Dragon would create a religion, a machine god, in the mind of the Martians, since they could literally almost feel the Void Dragon's presence. Hence, when the Emperor arrived on Mars, he was able to leverage their belief in the machine god to make them believe that he was the Omnissiah. Hence, he was able to easily align Mars with Terra to create the Imperium of Man, a bedrock to launch the Great Crusade from. Now, I've already made a video which discusses if the Emperor is the Omnissiah or if he was a liar and deceiver, with the Void Dragon being the true Omnissiah. It's a complicated question and the answer isn't as simple as you might think, so if you want to know, then check it out. Either way, the Emperor has been desperately trying to keep the existence of the Void Dragon a secret, as if the Mechanicus finds out that the source of their power, their literal god, was actually an alien god, it would cause a bit of a fucking ruckus. This also explains why the Mechanicus are obsessed with Necron tech, yet shun other Xeno race tech. They share a distant kinship with it. The Guardian of the Void Dragon has changed a few times. We don't know who the first one was, however we met Semyon during the Horus Heresy, who had been the Guardian for thousands of years. Semyon then makes Dahlia, a very talented woman, the next Guardian. She resides as the Guardian for about 10,000 years, however there is someone new at the moment, but we're not quite sure who it is. The Necrons have actually tried to find the Void Dragon under Mars, once suicide charging a small fleet into the Noctis Labyrinthus. However, they didn't really seem to know exactly what was there, only that there was something important. They were fought off before they could reach the dragon. The Void Dragon is the kind of mystery I love. There are plenty of unanswered questions, but there is enough info to paint a solid picture of the lore, whilst also leaving some room for a bit of theory crafting and interpretation. Good work, GW. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where there's not only a boatload of Battle Mace 40 million hentai, but also a collection of live action nude cosplays. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more draconic content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.